Fear not, citizens. Hope has arrived because we are here talking My Hero Academia. This is the Amateur Otaku podcast. We talk all things MHA, whether that be vigilantes, team up missions, the anime, and of course the manga, like we are here today. I am your host, President Mike. Joining me, of course, is the Mad Doc himself, Isaac Wolf. How you doing, Isaac?
It's chaos.
It is a lot of chaos, both IRL and in the manga right now. Brandon, also joining the show, co-founder and co-host of this amazing podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. And I don't know. I know we're gonna jump right into the chapters, so I figure I start with a question, if I may.
Go ahead.
This chapter, apart from being a phenomenal follow up to the previous great chapter that we got, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but one of the things that we talked about that was lacking in terms of this story was those moments that could have been sprinkled throughout the entirety of the manga, right? And
Yeah.
we're not there. And I found it very interesting that one of the things that does happen is that this chapter in particular reminds us of some of those moments.
Yeah, it does. And it also pads it a little bit by adding an extra moment at a
Yep.
very specific point in time, I might add, which is kind of
Yes.
cool.
Yes. So it kind of finished tying the knot. Did it satisfy some of those concerns that we had discussed last chapter?
A little bit. It was a good reminder that, yeah, Horikoshi did at least lay a little bit of the groundwork, but also this is still such a important, heavy topic.
Oh
I
yeah.
wish we focused on it a little bit more,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I can at least forgive it a little bit.
Well, now I'm going to ask a different question to layer all this. But doesn't it feel right that because we didn't probably give it as much attention as it maybe deserved in the beginning, that we give it a huge stage in this war arc? Because we're literally dedicating a section of this war to this topic, not just, you know what I mean. It's not just an isolated thing. No, it's making a huge splash right in the middle of the entire war arc that we're getting. So like our Horikoshi is putting it front and center, giving a lot more room to develop those characters that represent that group, but also we probably have another two chapters here. So I don't know. I wanted to know how you guys felt about that because I know that was a huge topic of conversation when we discussed the previous chapter.
Yeah. So I actually have thoughts on that, but I think we should hold off on it just a little bit. But guys, this is chapter 371 together with Shoji. Not to be confused with Choji from Naruto. Boom. There you go. We checked the box early. We can get that out the way. So
I mean, we can go back and talk about how Shoji is kind of like a Gara archetype, but go on.
so we pick up right where we left off. And again, mirroring the anime as he does so often, Horikoshi reminds us of what the heroes did during the hospital raid, right? Where they went in, got all the patients out, and then they launched their attack. And I think that's also very fascinating that's Shoji's biggest talking point, right? Where he's basically saying you have the right to protest. You have the right to fight for this goal, this ideal, but you're hurting people. And that's where I
Right.
draw the line, which I
Right.
think is a great way to show that while he disagrees with their methods, he still understands their message, which I think is great. Isaac, like what did you think of this opening chapter addressing again how the villains are going about fighting for their cause?
Well, first off, these two chapters sort of feels a prime example as one chapter split in two, if you catch my drift, and I think because of that it will probably go over a bit better in the anime once it's getting announced.
Like most things
Actually,
do.
yeah, you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it was a solid follow up of the first chapter, and I think, well, as I said, it was it fit. It's understandable, but the whole like you can understand the message, but you do it kind of wrong. It's I know it's not. I know it's 100% the same, but it's sort of like uh, um, sort of like no, no, never mind.
It's so much information.
Noted. Brandon, I want to toss this question to you right quick because we see, and this was a topic of conversation last week. Like, what exactly did All for One do to our man Spinner? Looks like he just straight up broke him. We have our answer. He gave him a quirk that just broke him. He's not speaking coherently. He looks like a zombie. Like, what are your thoughts on what's going on with Spinner and All for One in this chapter?
I don't know. It's like he is sadly made a what's the word I'm looking for? He's made a casualty of the all for one machine.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like
he's essentially just a pawn in this.
right,
entire
right,
scene.
and like he had agency, and because he chose to listen to all for one, he no longer has it. Because is he really fighting for what he believes, when all he believed was that he had friends like Shigaraki? You know, like, and it's funny because I kind of see what Horikoshi is doing here because in a certain way, Spinner and Shoji are the same character.
Yeah,
You know, and he's literally presenting the two ways it can go, and like we know for a fact the Spinner had solace when he found friendship with Shigaraki. Like Spinner is, I would say, is one of the ones that Horikoshi has made it a deliberate plot point to say that him and Shigaraki got close. Does that make sense? Like
yeah,
out
they
of
played League of Legends together. You can't get any closer than that.
true. Like it's the only one in the League of Villains that was that close to Shigaraki. Everybody else was just another member. You know what I mean? Because the only other like Compress was just there and then without an arm, and then Twice was all about how he got together with Toga in terms of how that brother sister relationship that formed there, right?
Right. And then you have Dabi who literally says, I'm just here to enact my revenge on my father and
Right.
honor Stain. I have nothing to do with you guys.
Right. I'm just here for the ride because you guys are the vehicle that makes sense there.
Right.
Like I even think Dabi will be the one that will flip the finger to All for One and say, "You have nothing to do with what I want to do, so bye."
Yeah.
Like he's that guy. But I like the parallels that we see here with Shoji and Spinner, because they all have the opportunity to react differently to the same situation, which is technically the whole argument with all heteromorphs, right? Now.
Yeah.
I do find it fascinating that he's become a victim of the All for One machine. I find it fascinating that the other quirk kind of, when it activates, which again, super cool. The fact, I think this is the first time that we see what All for One give a quirk away looks like.
We've seen it in a flashback in the Vestige space. Deku saw it once. But other than that, yeah, this is the first time we've kind of seen it like live in action.
Yeah, like literally like lightning or like a weird power thing coming out of his hands and just going into Spinner.
Yep.
But I like how it shows how strategic All for One is, because he gave him both quirks kind of because probably both quirks work together, which makes perfect sense. Again, more Teen Mutant Ninja Turtle reference. What is it? Rocksteady, and what was the other one? There's like
Yeah,
a chorus.
Bebop.
Yeah, there's just so much of that there, right? But beyond that, which is great, what makes this so powerful is that when people see Shoji's scars and they start listening to him. To it, like you can notice that the tide starts to change a little bit, because this is not just some guy that just came out of nowhere. No, this guy has scars in his face, and it's probably because these are the same kind of scars that we all have.
Yeah.
Which I think is so very, very well done and very smart, and also very, I would say, delicate, deliberate, and respectful to the type of topic that he's trying to handle. You know what I mean? Because there's so many ways to do it wrong. And I think Horikoshi is really taking this particular topic very seriously.
Yeah, when Spinner says the line, no, excuse me, when Shoji says the line, Spinner, you're about to set us back 30 years. I felt that. Like, dang, you feel that in these types of struggles, especially, you know, again, allegory for racism and any type of hate crime. You kind of feel that whenever you make progress, you have one idiot that can just turn the tide and set you back another decade, or 2 or 3 or 4. And it's like, yeah, that's unfortunately might be the case for the heteromorphs. After seeing this wide scale attack, Isaac, Brandon kind of touched on the whole all for one passing the power and Spinner getting this second ability. Because again, we're still not sure if this new form is a quirk evolution or did he give him 2 quirks? Like, what are your thoughts on him getting the scale mail quirk and him going on this insane rampage?
I mean, it kind of makes sense that he can't really control it because like it was sort of like it became overload. Sorry, because everybody can't handle more than one quirk kind of deal. And second of all, it just proves the point that he wasn't anything else than just a pawn to all for one, so it makes sense. Using quote unquote mutant was the easiest. How should I put it? It's the easiest pawn to use as a if you want to have your own Hulk kind of deal. It wouldn't work as effective if he took, like, I can't really come up with a name on the top of my head, but non-mutant member of
like Toga,
the
right?
league. Toga, yeah.
Yeah.
It's something very interesting. Also, you guys mentioned that, and here's where I give you guys a lot of the things. Okay.
One last thing before you can take it. It just feels. I'm just happy that this feels tasteful because how should I put it? The whole thing can if they're a writer that just want to have it for the sake of having it, then it can come off as how should I put it? Pretentious and uncivilized. But here it sort of feels like it gives a damn about making the subject matter with respect kind of deal.
Yeah.
Brandon, what were you about to say?
So I want to give you guys points on something because I didn't feel it till now reading this chapter. Not that I disagree with everything I said before in terms of that I feel that he's doing justice, at least by now, I feel a lot more confident that he's doing justice to the topic, right? Mm-hmm. But I would have liked to see more of Spinner's struggle because it would justify the story point. It justifies the turn of allowing All for One to feed his trauma to make him into the monster, right?
Right.
Which is kind of also the angle that they're using, right? Like, All for One starts to feed on the fact that Spinner has this anger towards the world. So, which again is a typical villain story, right?
Yeah.
Which again is what he's done with Shigaraki, right? But I kind of feel that I would have liked to see more of that, so it justifies more his turn as a villain or antagonist, and I think it would make it even more fitting as a villain for Shoji. So I kind of want now that the next chapter we get a little bit more spinner to balance it out. But I do love everything that we got with Shoji. Now, Mike, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Because to go a little further into the chapter, how interesting was it to you that Horikoshi took the time to explain that where you were raised does make it a different type of environment, because Shoji literally points that out, and he's talking about Tokoyami, he's talking about Kona, like they were raised in different areas that probably didn't have as much hate speak like he suffered.
Yeah.
Like how did that hit?
That is honestly what makes this entire chapter work, because again, we're following Izuku, right? And we know Izuku lives in the city. So it's like, okay, that justifies why, if we're following Deku's perspective for most of the story, we didn't necessarily see these things happen the way they happen. But also, that's just how it is in real life, too. Like, I live in the Midwest. It's not the most friendly town for people like me up here, compared to the rest of the country. So that is a very great subject and talking point. I'm glad they referenced it. It's just insane to me, though, that it went as far as it did. Like him being beaten as a child and getting all these scars. And it's like, that is brutal. And that is, again, something I wish we could have dived into a little bit more. I do think it's funny, like going back and you see in chapter, what is it, like 200? What chapter, like 220 or something like that, when we first meet Nejire, she asks Shoji why he's wearing a mask, and he's about to answer, and then she cuts him off and just jumps to like Todoroki and asks why he has a scar on his face. And it's like, that could have been Horikoshi saying, we're gonna hint at that, we're not gonna touch it right now, which I think is funny.
Yeah.
I want to know, Brandon, in that very panel we learned that, right? On page 7 for you guys at home looking at chapter 371. Do you guys notice the outfit Deku is wearing in this shot? This takes place after his fight with Bakugo, when they're suspended, and he first meets Lemillion taking out the trash. He has the trash back in his hand. So, like, it's fair to assume that Deku just had this insane conversation with his classmates, and then immediately takes the garbage out and meets Mirio Togata, which is just insane. Detail.
Is this that fight that he has with Bakugo, where Bakugo finds out about One for All?
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been a crazy couple days for Izuku.
Yes. But then that's kind of also a very particular point of a chapter, because it also kind of highlights that everybody has a bad day.
Yeah.
Everybody has, you know what I mean? And it's going to be manifested differently also. Now, before we jump into that chapter, I do want to point something into it. Again, do you have something else beyond that point before I move to something real quick?
No, yeah, you can move on.
Because I think that page 7 is great to move forward. But the setup towards the argument that begins in page 7, it's right there in page 1. In the same panel, when you see all the scars that Shoji has, the people reacting, and you see Kona's clean face. It gives you all that information of, that Kona's a city kid.
Yeah.
He hasn't been through what Shoji has been through. And like even now he's looking at Shoji and going like, holy shit. It's real up in the hood, in these places. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's hard. But going back to that page 7 moment, when he talks about that maybe even his parents, because that's kind of what he alludes to, right? Like when he says, my parents didn't have arms like mine, that makes it sound like his parents really didn't help.
Yeah, I think it just makes it so that he is alone, like he is the outcast, right? Where
Right.
he couldn't even relate. His parents couldn't even relate, even though they may have tried their best. They
Right.
still weren't like him. Which, yeah, that is a very just it's awful. Honestly, it's very tragic for this character. But also, like you said, he still went down the path of becoming a hero, which at the end of the day I think shows that one, his parents were good enough to steer him down the right path, unlike Shigaraki's parents. And two, that again, I think goes to something Isaac always talks about with nature versus nurture, right? Where
Right.
they were able to foster that good inside of him, even though he lived in awful situations and circumstances.
Right. And the other side of it is when you find out why he touched a girl's hand. Because that's kind of the setup, right? He talks that they started this cleansing because he touched a girl's hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like he touched a little girl's hand, and then we find out that the reason he touched this little girl's hand was because he saved her life. And saving her life provided him with that first moment of kindness that he's ever had, which is why he decided to be a hero, because there is such a thing as being gifted with kindness when you give kindness. So now I also going back to that page 7, I find it so deliberate also how Horikoshi, and I'm going to say this and it might sound controversial or whatever, but I cannot deny thinking that Horikoshi is kind of like he's not talking about Japan. like like all the imagery, like Shoji, he literally says that he's from the countryside. Like he's being very deliberate in what he's put, what he's laying down.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's sad and it's heartbreaking because number one, you can't deny that those particular traits in terms of what we've seen represented in racism and stuff like that, those particular traits sadly describe it so well,
Yeah.
but it also feels so close to home. And it makes me think like the world sees what happens here. And it's so daunting.
So I wanted to bring this image up on the screen here. This is a news broadcaster that's been in a few episodes of MHA, a few manga chapters. I can't nail them down specifically. My memory's not that good, but there's something that in one of these volumes, Horikoshi has a note, right? And it's that this news broadcaster, you see how he has one horn like broken or missing?
Yeah. Yeah.
He filed it down because of discrimination and being a heteromorph, and we've known that since like season 2 of the show. And again, it's just Horikoshi is making sure you kind of know that this is an issue in the world of MHA, and he's just now finally going right into it. And again, this goes back to our whole conversation of My Hero Academia is not ending as fast as we thought, because he's probably like, oh yeah, I've got these major concepts and ideas that I still need to address before we wind this thing down. And this is just another example I thought I'd highlight, because we see this firsthand of he half committed to it too, right? He took one horn, but not the other. And that is, again, just shows how messed up the entire race issue essentially for the heteromorphs is. And like he said, him taking cues from what happens over here is unfortunate, but also this is an issue that is worldwide. It's just more prominent in the news cycle here in the West. And I think that's also something Hori is
consistently present, which is what's alarming.
Right. And so I think that's something that he wants to highlight, especially for a Japanese author to do it. I think that is insanely powerful, especially with a franchise as big as My Hero Academia.
Yeah.
That I can respect, even though I may not love every single time he tries to handle it.
like he's trying to it's one of those people that recognizes that he holds the control of a stage and he's taking advantage of it.
Right.
You know, so I do see that. Now, I I love the whole thing of them using Shoji as blankets. Like they're trying to, I find that of course adorable.
This whole thing with his classmates are adorable. Especially seeing Ashido and Mineta specifically.
Yeah.
kind of getting upset and trying to comfort him. It felt was sweet.
Yeah. Now, I think I forgot what I was going to say, but I don't know. It's such a good chapter, such a good moment, just so many good moments, and I love how it inspires other people like Kona, and inspire other people to be better. Like it's just great.
Yeah,
I'm enjoying everything that's going on right now.
it's solid stuff. Isaac, how are you feeling about Shoji's backstory and Class A's reaction once they learned it?
I mean, it fits within the type of how should I put it? In the with the characters of how they would react. It fits within the subject matter that they want to cover. It's it's sort of like, yeah, I think it all things considered, it synergetic. It works really well.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, and as nice as this chapter was, and a good follow up to the previous one, I think the story only has like one more solid chapter in it before he needs to pull the plug. I don't know how far, especially since we're focusing on Shoji and Koda and Spinner, three characters that I just find completely uninteresting. Aside from this one story beat we're giving them, I
Yeah,
don't know how much longer we can stay in this fight. We might need to shift over to Dabi for a fifth time after this.
maybe, or maybe we finally get our moment with Toga and
It's not
Uraraka.
happening. It's not gonna happen. I said that for like the last year. We are never going back to
We're getting that in MHA Shippuden.
if we ever
Oh
get
no,
that far.
it's gonna be a spinoff like the Sasuke family spinoff.
Yeah,
Uh,
speaking of which, I've been reading Naruto Sasuke story, the Uchiha and the Heavenly Stardust. On Viz, by the way, you guys can check it out there. It is
Or
pretty
Manga
fun.
Plus.
Or Manga Plus, do that. It's been pretty fun. I'm reading the Sasuke story, the Konoha stories, and the Boruto stories have been kind of fun. I'm gonna be real. I like going back to the Naruto universe.
so good, so good.
Sorry, Isaac. I feel like I failed you.
Fail me on what?
But
I just said I like going back to the Boruto universe.
now I think
You do you.
now I do want to find out who the hell this Joker is. This idiot spider-looking idiot.
Yeah, that's. I have no idea, and that's again why I don't think we can stay at this fight too long. I don't think it matters who this guy is. I think he's just
a foil for Kona.
he's just a foil here for Koda. While Shoji takes down Spinner. I also want to highlight how while the story's interesting, this isn't a knock on what Horikoshi's doing, but I just want to show that Spinner is so irrelevant to the main cast that he's going to be taken down by Shoji and Koda, not
Damn.
Todoroki,
I
not
mean-
Asu, not Bakugo.
I mean, did he ever do anything out of the ordinary? No, he was just
No,
Shigaraki's
but-
friend.
That's my point. Like we
Uh.
never got anything.
But
mean-
well, so look at this. So can we praise Kohei a little bit more because he actually gave something meaningful to this group of characters?
Sure. Yeah, nothing will ever top Jiro trying to fight all for one. I'm sorry. That is peak
Agreed.
characters
agreed.
punching up, right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean,
Yes.
thematically.
Dark Shadow.
Okay.
No, go. Go.
Thematically, it makes sense but why Spinner is going to gets taken down by them in comparison to other characters. I would dare argue.
It does, but again, because the author wrote it that way, because Spinner has no other value to this League of
Now, I do
Villains.
want to ask, how do we feel about Kona going Super Saiyan and his head like splitting open?
It's creepy because I don't understand how his power works. That's never happened before, and it highlights my hero's greatest strengths and weaknesses. Right, one of the greatest strengths that Horikoshi has as a writer is that he can take one chapter and make you fall in love with the character. Like, think about Lemillion and Sun Eater becoming fan favorites, and they were only in essentially one arc, but
Bro,
also
that
one of the shortest arcs.
that whole Sun Eater arc where Sun Eater's fighting those guys in Overhaul's mansion,
Yeah,
beautiful.
like 4 chapters makes you fall in love with them. That's Horikoshi's greatest strength. But also a big weakness is that he's got too many dang characters in this story for us to keep track of. And it's like, we only knew that he could talk to animals. I don't know what is happening at the end of this chapter. I'm sure we're gonna find out, and I'm sure we're gonna love it. That's
Do
usually
you
how it works
imagine that
around
he
here.
goes Beast Boy? He can become the animals now.
That might be a touch too far. I would be like, you should have told me that way sooner. He's way more interesting instead of talking to
It's like,
birds.
damn it, Horikoshi, we're giving you a pass because we're enjoying this topic, but damn it, don't ruin it now.
But yeah, it's fine, I guess. Again, it's serviceable for the story he's telling, but as far as the grand narrative of My Hero Academia, it's but a blip for me, unfortunately.
I do want to point out how much of a monster Spinner has become that he
Yeah.
even calls Shoji gross at the end, which is what he always like. He became what he was. He became the oppressor, which again is what a lot of times happens in stuff like this.
What's gonna happen to Spinner, because he's basically speaking incoherent thoughts at this point, and it's getting bad. It's like he's getting worse and worse as the chapter goes on. He's gone full Godzilla by the time we get to the end here.
I think he's not gonna make it.
Oof. So another
Yeah.
twice.
Yeah, but also, I mean, it makes me think like I don't know, like can you save the progress made by keeping people like that around?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest questions.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, you can
it's
try and
definitely-
turn them, right? But at the same time, it's like, you know,
yeah, you got to keep, like Shoji says, you got to just keep fighting and
yeah,
keep pushing for the next generation. Hopefully, it'll be easier for them
yes.
as you strive for progress. It's a very powerful theme and topic. But yeah, did you guys have anything else you wanted to say on chapter 371?
Not
This
that I
chapter-
can think of.
This chapter, Loki tells us that the new version of All for Shiggy is a what do they call it? Heteromorph.
Yeah.
Because when you look at Shoji's powered up arm, you can't help but think about Shiggy.
Yeah. Also, Shigaraki's a gamer playing League. It was like one of the saddest parts of this entire chapter was I played League of Legends only in single player though, in small text. It's just like, oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
It just highlights that they both were alone, and that's what made them best friends. And
Yeah.
it's again frustrating because does Shigaraki even know Twice is dead? Like that's something that he never has addressed, and he never had a chance to talk to Toga about it at all. So we don't even know. Like, does he know
Probably.
that his team is falling apart?
Yeah, and it's all because of All for One. Like he
Right.
actually made friends with people, and All for One is the cause of
Awful, awful, awful.
Yeah.
We'll see what's happening with Tomura. We got to get our boy back, especially because the anime's ramping up and we're seeing him finally like broken free. And my heart aches because I'm like, this is the last time we actually see Tomura Shigaraki
Yeah.
in the story. But yeah, I guess that's a wrap, guys. This was My Hero Academia chapter 371 together with Shoji, aka Tentacole. One of the best names in Class A, by the way. Poor Mineta for calling him an octopus unknowingly saying like a racial slur equivalent to this man.
Which again, it kind of fits. It's a young, small white dude. Like,
Yeah, Monetis is a lot of things he shouldn't. We already know that. So
yes.
at least he was remorseful for it.
Yes.
Isaac, where can people find you, man?
Well, you can find me over at Emblemaniac on Twitter, and you can find my written stuff at Webweb Entertainment. And also, if you're someone that hasn't catch up on our latest stream with Leech and Chainsaw Man, I suggest you listen to that one in with headphones, because that one ended up extremely not safe for work. Well, Brandon knows exactly what I'm talking about.
So much fun.
Guys, check out the live streams every Sunday. Brandon, where can they find you, man?
You can find me at the Scarlet Fan 52 on Twitter, and you can find me also at the Shatter After podcast, where we cover movies, interviews, and shows every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks. It's a beautiful thing. Check that out. You guys can find me at Novice Cinephile everywhere. Nothing else, but just everywhere. It's always Novice Cinephile, except on Instagram where it's the Novice Cinephile, but I'm not on there anyway. You don't need to go there. It's fine. But you can find the podcast at Amateur Otaku Pod on Twitter. Make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. Make sure you give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss anything. We're also in your podcast feed, so you can take us with you on the go. And like Isaac was alluding to earlier, live streams every Sunday night. We're talking My Hero Academia, Spy Family, Bleach, Chainsaw Man, maybe a little bit of One Piece when that movie drops. So stay tuned for all of the goodness here at the Amateur Otaku Podcast. Until next time, as always, like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing, and go beyond plus ultra.
Plus Ultra.
Ultra.